Hi. As a libertarian, I want to briefly talk about the Supreme Court of the U.S., as well as campaign financing like Citizens United and voting the Electoral College. First, Supreme Court of the U.S. There's a lot at stake. Several people hold many important decisions in our hands, but they get life-term appointments, 40 years or whatever, and then they retire when their party is in power. So it basically comes down to is who dies or whatever during a particular party's term. That's a horrible way to do it. Why don't we simply have every 8 years the people vote for the Supreme Court justices? Every 8 years, so there's stability, but we also have a selection. So many people can run after a primary or whatever, and they are brought forward for an election every 8 years. Then you won't have extremists as much doing things like threatening. I've heard things like, oh, I hope Ruth Bader Ginsburg croaks, or maybe we can speed up the process, which it sounded like they were hinting from other things they've said at assassinating people like that. So it just leads to extremism as a moderate libertarian on many issues. It's a horrible way of doing it, just like the Electoral College is a horrible way because most states' votes do not count. I've lived in Texas, I lived in New York, I lived in Florida, and mmany other areas. Most of the votes don't count unless if you're in a swing state or a purple state. Conservative votes don't count in Texas after a certain point because they're going to win it anyways. Just like liberal votes or Democrat votes in Texas aren't going to matter because they're clearly going to lose it, and you only can win it by so much, so after a certain point it doesn't matter. So it discourages voting. I have no reason to vote in New York. I know what they're going to vote for. Whereas if everyone has a vote, it counts. Who would be against this? I don't know. Someone who doesn't like democracy, apparently. So we need to abolish the Electoral College and then pandering to only several states. We need to have better Supreme Court justices since they have such power, and we don't want to just forfeit power for 30 years because of based on who dies during a certain period. It's silly. Either side could have an advantage, and it shouldn't even be as political, to be honest, but people are political. And finally, campaign financing. Why is money allowed in politics? So much money allowed in politics is ridiculous. Give them equal airtime and to debate the issues from all parties. Green Party, Libertarian Party, Democrat, Republican, and so forth. So, as a libertarian, those are what I see logical for the Supreme Court so we can stop extremists, people threatening to assassinate, as we have seen attempts not too long ago at a baseball game for the GOP and such. So, although I think they were mentally ill, still, it's ridiculous. Let's have better democracy. Let the people vote every 8 years for the Supreme Court. Popular vote. Screw the Electoral College. Nonsense. And get the money out of politics. Thank you. Pretty simple.